Hi, everyone. First of all, just wanted to apologize for a second for taking so long to get this out to you. It's been kind of a crazy week, especially with everything happening here in Texas with the weather and things like that. So it's taken me a little longer than I originally anticipated to get this out. Also, just so you know, there will be a more polished and a more in-depth version of this that I am creating right now. But I wanted to honor my word and get this out to you as quickly as possible. This is something that I've been working on for arguably probably the past 10 years of my direct sales career, through a Hall of Fame direct sales career as well. And there's structures that I think not only apply to individuals that are working in a direct sales capacity, but working in any business capacity where you're dealing directly with clients and even in a B2B space. Some of these are going to apply more directly to certain industries. That's fine, but I think there's truths and nuggets in these that I would consider universal that apply to any industry there as well. Right. So to go ahead and share my screen with you guys here, you'll have a copy of this as well. All right, so these are what I'm calling the 10 referral commandments, right? Now, one thing that's important when we're talking about referrals, when we're talking about building a book of business, one thing that I think is incredibly important is to understand why exactly somebody is agreeing to see you, what value you're bringing to the conversation, and then what exactly is going to come through there, right? Everybody likes the idea of like just imagine one client turns into multiple more clients, but the reality is how often do we focus on how much value I'm providing for that client? How am I showing up for them? And also, do I have a crystal clear avatar or profile for who it is that I'm trying to meet and I'm looking to be introduced to, right? So I'll go down through these for a second. The first one, always ask for a referral. The answer is always no unless you ask. I feel like this is pretty simple, but it's amazing to me how few people have a consistent system in place to consistently ask for referrals from clients or to ask them to say, hey, you know what, here's who I'm looking to meet. Who do you know that does this, right? It's amazing to me how often whenever you share your goals, if you're working hard and providing value, it's amazing to me how many more people in your ideal target market know other people just like them in your ideal target market. So always ask for a referral and be crystal clear on who it is that you're actually wanting to work with. And then just have a general idea of like where did this person hang out. We'll get to that a little bit here when we talk about our high level hit list. Right. The second mistake that most people make, they don't ask for a tangible number of referrals. They don't ask for a specific number. Um, Using language like, hey, well, if you can think of anybody, or, if anyone needs blank, 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 that's super, super weak, right? Like what they just happen to be going to a restaurant or texting their friend and this random thing popped up. I mean, maybe occasionally, right? Like for example, I went from Cutco and direct sales into the roofing industry and storm restoration. People probably know other people on their block that know someone in the local area that was affected by the same storm. So that would work hypothetically, but the reality was that and myself even, I'll be the first to admit that I didn't execute on this the way I should have. But instead of saying, "Oh yeah, like well, whoever you know," or anything like this, or anything on those lines, it becomes, "Hey, who do you know?" Right? Who do you know there? What I need you to do, right, is write down the names anywhere from 500 to 1,000 of your closest friends that meet this criteria. I'm totally kidding, right? Most people just get somewhere between 15 and 20 or somewhere along those lines. So you notice that you raise their sights and you have a very specific tangible number that you're actually asking for. The reality is you may not end up getting that higher number, but if you're not going to get that number anyway, it's going to be less. I might as well start higher, start bigger, and eventually what it's going to show up for me is going to be that much smaller, right? So who cares if I'm asking for it's 500 to 1,000. Most people get between 20 and 30 or 15 to 20. Well, they may only get halfway there, but all of a sudden they got 10 referrals instead of saying, cool, I need to write down 10 names and numbers. You see what I'm saying? So start bigger and have a specific tangible number that you're asking for, right? The third of the 10 referral commandments. Understand why that person agreed to see you and the value that you're bringing to the situation, right? Um, I'm going to reference something a little more specific here. The world that I came from was Cutco Knives and direct sales with a vector marketing sales organization. Um, what we found a lot of times, and there's this big stigma that like the only reason you could do an in-home demo for somebody was because you were a college student and like you had this like they offered a scholarship for top performers, right? And they actually helped kids pay for their school. That was what universally was taught to high school and college students to help get them in the door. But what I realized after that, because for an entire year after I came back, that was a model that I ran, was strictly referral based, getting referrals from friends, family, et cetera, from my current clients and moving into their friends' homes and then doing presentations for them, right? I started to understand that people legitimately wanted to see me in that realm because they wanted to help somebody out and their friend already said yes, right? I find that most people, especially if you're name dropping, if you're saying, "Hey, your friend so and so, I was helping them out with this. You were the first person they thought of whenever I brought this up. So I promised them I'd give you a call. I just want to see if you're available at this day or at this time to see if there's anything that might work out for us or see if we could be of value. Does Thursday at 7 or Friday at 9 work better?" Right. So you'll notice that all of a sudden there it's becoming, I'm name dropping their friend. I'm saying, "Hey, here, they're the first person you thought of." And it's very assumptively saying, "Cool, when can we meet? When can we talk about this?" Right. That comes from a really in-depth understanding of why that person agreed to see you, right? For example, in the storm restoration industry, they agreed to see me and let me on their roof or had me come back or whatever it was because they think there's damage to that, right? If you're there to show up for them, like, be very clear and transparent. We shouldn't be talking about, "Oh, well, maybe, if you can think of someone, just send them my way," or anything like that. No, it's weak. If you're going to ask for a referral, be bold in the ask, understand the situation, understand why that person is sitting across from you, ask a direct question for how they can help you out in that capacity, and then understand the value that you're bringing to them. Why should they even refer you? Right? Become a person that is referable. Another mistake, that which actually brings me my the fourth commandment here: givers gain. Right? How can you help that person achieve their goals? How can I help support you? um, this is one of the things that gets overlooked, excuse me. Everyone focuses on, hey, who else do you know? Hey, send me more people, right? Very few people focus on, how can I really dive in and provide value for this person? And it's part of what I cover in a later training I'm calling the relationship Rolodex, which really starts to look at, what value am I bringing, right? How can I help do this? And the reality is that, there's been a lot of studies that show that whenever someone gives first, it's a very natural human tendency to want to reciprocate and give back, right? So what does that mean for us? How does it actually work out? Well, if we know that this is the case, a great question to ask people is like, "Hey, like, what are you looking to work on right now? How can I help you with that?" Right? And maybe it's specific to your coaching services. Maybe it's specific to another industry that you're in. But when you start to go above and beyond for people, even just asking that question, like, "Hey, how can I help support you? What are you working on? How can I help support you?" All of a sudden, like, wow, like, one, they probably don't get asked that question very often. And two, it becomes very quickly, "Here's how I can help support," right? Make a mental note of whoever it is that's in that industry or what they do. And then next time you see somebody there, send them a referral first, if you can, right? Asking that question, though, shows up from a place of service rather than just take, take, take. You're giving first. And it starts to build this mutual reciprocity there that helps with both of you, right? Become a person worth referring. This is a really big one, especially when you start to look at dealing with higher net worth individuals, start to deal with people that are more successful. Um, why should someone take the meeting? Why should they sit down with you? How do you start to get past the gatekeeper? Well, it's because you have to be the person that's worth referring. You have to be the person that's worthy of that meeting, right? And I think a lot of people in their head are like, "Oh yeah, cool, I'll just put on a front or a LinkedIn message or whatever." But it goes much, much deeper than that, right? "Hey, I helped this person solve this problem." And whenever I asked them who else they knew, you were the first person they thought of, right? Because I solved this, right? Be extraordinarily clear about the value that you're bringing to the situation. If it's you're trying to sit down with more business owners, right? "Hey, I'm helping them with this, whether it's with their branding, with their marketing, with their sales processes, with anything along those lines. But now, how am I showing up to that person to provide value for them, right? Am I the person that is going to treat that relationship?" Because that's essentially what you're asking this other person to do. You're asking them to tap into their relationships and their network. Am I a person that's worthy of being in that network of relationships? If you're the one that's out there, especially, in today's day and age, if your social media is wild and crazy and you're partying and doing whatever, and you just kind of show up for an appointment here or there as a professional, that's just not going to cut it. Because what you're actually asking that person to do whenever you ask for a referral to their friends, you're asking them to vouch for you and put their name on the line for the way you are showing up and the value you're providing. Very few people truly inherently understand that, right? A great referral can blossom into unlimited opportunity and potential. Or excuse me, a good referral can blossom into unlimited opportunity and potential. A bad referral, meaning you send someone there, not only makes you look like an idiot, not only shuts down the new relationship that was there, it also potentially poisons and ruins the relationship between those other two people that was already existing. So you're actually asking them to take a chance and trust you. And how are you showing up and how are you doing these things? You're asking them to take that chance on you. And that can be really scary for a lot of people, which leads me to my next point. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Everything matters when it comes to becoming a person that is worth referring, when it comes to actually giving and showing up and understanding your value here. Everything matters. Do you show up when you say you're going to show up? Right? Are you polite and respectful the entire time? If a problem arises, do you solve it? Are you on top of it or do you let it sit and fester for a while, regardless of whatever's happening? How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're showing up on time every single time you're there, 5 minutes early to every single meeting, if you're supposed to have a phone call with somebody, you're showing up a few minutes later, this or that, are you being proactive in your communication? Are you actually using proper professional communication with this person, right? Understand what that actually looks like and how to do that with that client. If you've shown up consistently every single time, whether it's a call, a meeting, every single interaction that you have, if your sales presentation is not high pressure, it's very service oriented and designed to help that client, they're going to say, you know what, the experience that I just had with you is the same experience that I can trust that you're going to then provide for whoever I refer you to. So really dialing in and focusing on that relationship experience, really dialing in and saying, you know what, this is how I'm going to show up, regardless of who it is in any capacity. That's how you start to become a person worth referring. That's how you start to understand. And people that execute this at a really high level, you can go as niche down as minute as you want to in this, but especially in a lot of industries, it goes beyond just my phone call, my initial phone conversation with them, the text conversation, whatever it is, right? It's what's my tone like whenever I show up with them. At certain levels, it's also what type of vehicle am I showing up in, right? How am I dressed? Am I dressed professionally? Do I look like I just threw a shirt on in the car and had to, I've got some wrinkles and some other stuff going on, right? Are you dressed to the nines consistently? It doesn't have to be all out, three-piece suit and tie, etc. But are you a put together person who has things under control? Do you have a handle on stuff? Because if you don't, that's all automatically starts to sense like, hey, there's a chink in the armor here, there's a crack in the wall of the facade, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. And what happens oftentimes with prospects, with their people, as things start to show up, it becomes very quickly, oh crap. Subconsciously, even they may not be able to put their finger on it, but if they feel weird or off in any capacity, your chances of getting a referral from that person are very, very low. And they're not going to be as many as they possibly could have, as you possibly could have gotten from them because of that. They're not going to, like, if they think for a second something could go haywire, they don't feel completely confident in you and how you're showing up, the whole thing can go out the window, right? The opposite is also true. If you show up and you're on point, you're professional, your communication is professional, you understand communication guidelines, you're working with someone consistently, you're pressed and dressed to the nines in everything that you're doing in all aspects of your business and all aspects of your communication and interaction, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable referring you to somebody else because they trust that if you're showing up that way for them, you'll show up that way for everybody else there as well, right? This leads me to another area. Oh, here we go. Another concept: win-win or no deal, right? This has to be a mutual win for both parties, right? And especially when you start looking at referrals at a higher level, not just your everyday, okay, cool, how can I get in front of, 510, 500 to 1,000 people, whatever it is, right, as quickly as possible. When it becomes, hey, I'm looking to meet with this specific person right here, understand the value you're bringing to them and also the value that they're bringing to you. It has to make sense for both parties. If it doesn't make sense for both parties to be involved, then then the deal shouldn't go on. If only one party is providing value in some capacity, it may be okay in a short stint. For example, if you're looking for like a connection to a mentor of some kind or someone who's doing particularly well in the industry, etc. I understand it. Sometimes you're going to be unequally burdened or unequally yoked in some of these capacities. But the reality is, if you want that to be an existing relationship, it's what value are you bringing to that situation? right? An example of this. If you're dealing with a very high net worth individual and you want them to coach and teach you, what's the value you're bringing to that person? What can be one of a couple things? But what I found, at least in my situation, is it's one of a couple things here. It's either, hey, how can I send them more referrals? Who are they looking to meet? How can I find someone to add value find some way to add value to them and not expect anything from it, right? Or in some cases, depending on where that person's at in their life cycle, they may actually be actively looking for people that just get it, that are willing to do the legwork and put in the work. And if that's the case, then be willing to be that person. Understand the value that you bring to the situation. It may not be necessarily financially tangible or economically tangible, but there's still value that's there that's provided, right? Sometimes they're looking for a way to build their company or a way to build up a portion of their company, and they see that you're young and hungry and you just want to learn, and they may say, you know what, hey, like I actually would love to have a conversation with you because your attitude and what you've got going on is a perfect fit for what I'm trying to build and do over here. And be amazed when you show people what you're working on and how excited you are about it. You share with passion, professionalism, consistency, how many doors they start to want to open, especially when someone's successful. I meet so many people that when they find somebody else that just quote unquote gets it, they want to send the ladder back down. They want to help out, right? So make sure you're actually doing that and being that person. And don't, I would add into this, I don't like using negative connotations typically, but don't underestimate the value you bring to the conversation, right? Understand that you have a unique set of gifts and strengths that set you apart no matter what you're doing, and understand that's what you can bring to the conversation in that capacity, right? This brings me to my next portion here, what we call a double opt-in. If I'm making a really high level referral or people that are really, things that are done particularly well in my network, what I like to do is go ahead and ask both parties before I just introduce them, right? I'll reach out to someone and say, hey, who is it that who are you looking to meet right now? Right. I'll get an answer from that person. Then if someone that matches up with someone in my personal network or someone that I want to work with, I'll go to them and say, hey man, here's the thing. This person's really looking for this. I think they'd be a good fit for you because of blank, blank, blank. Right. Would you, and then ask their permission, would you like me to introduce you? Right. Most people, if they're networking at a pretty high level, they'll start to understand and be like, okay, and you'll pick up pretty quickly based on their verbiage and the way they say things. It also sets intention for that meeting for those next two people, right? It's not just, okay, cool. Hey, you guys are awesome. Y'all should know each other. It's introducing, saying, hey, Jim, this is Bobby. He does blank, blank, blank. Because of this, I think you guys would really hit it off on da, da, da. Hey, Bobby, this is Jim. Jim does this. I told him about this that you were working on, and you mentioned that it was great. I think you guys would be a really great connection for each other, and would love to see you guys actually, happy connecting or something along those lines, right? But getting both parties to say yes, also setting the intention for why it's there and why they're talking to each other, how they can actually begin to work with that, right? This leads me to my next portion here, your high level hit list, right? And it also plays in a little bit with number 10, knowing exactly who you're looking to meet. You should have an ideal client profile or an avatar and be extraordinarily clear about who it is and what it is you're looking for and what you're looking for out of that relationship, right? In the world that I came from with direct sales, we were looking for married 30 to 65-year-old homeowners. That was what we called a max, right? So married, age, and a certain, they had, casa or crib, right? Married 30 to 65-year-old homeowners was our ideal client profile, our ideal target market. Knew exactly who we were going to looking for, but more importantly, on my end, as I was starting to network my way as a high school, college student, and young professional, I had an active rolling list in my head of who the top 25 relationships were that I was trying to get in front of, right? And there were even times when I wouldn't necessarily, if I didn't have a connection to that individual one specific person, what I would do then is I would say, cool, well, who do I know that's in my network that knows that person, right? And maybe it wasn't, maybe quite frankly, I didn't have anybody in my network that knew them, but I was willing to bet I probably knew someone that had a connection. I started to see things 2, 3, 4 chains and layers deep. And so I would go do appointments in some cases for someone that I knew wasn't maybe my best ideal prospect, but I knew they had a good relationship with someone else. And I just focused on wowing that person. How can I show up and how can I do this consistently? Right. And then I have a list of people that was like, hey, I'm really looking to get introduced and meet this, and this person. Right. Do you know anybody that knows them? Do you know them personally? Right. Would you mind introducing me? Having a very specific list, knowing exactly who I was looking to meet, and saying, cool, how can I show up in front of this more often? And it's really interesting because in my hometown, it's probably, I don't know, 100, it's got a sister city right next to it. So it's probably about 200 to 250,000 people total in that area. I only had about 700 to 800 clients before I moved to a different market. But when you start to go through the who's who in that community, it's business owners, right? People that are involved in construction, high level realtors. You start to go through kind of the who's who in that town, and I bet you I've sold to probably 20, 30% of them. I actually done that, and I've probably been another 10% of their homes, right? And got referred to them, whether I made a sale or not, right? So I've got those relationships and got those things, quote unquote, in my back pocket because I knew exactly who I was looking to meet. I knew who were the movers and shakers. Who did I want to get an introduction to? Who had the potential to move my business the largest, the fastest, right? And then how could I show up for that relationship in a way as a person worth referring? How could I show up and wow their friends, their family, or wow someone in their inner circle to provide me then that next referral and that next introduction, right? It really is not as difficult as it seems in a lot of ways, but the thing that's most challenging for most people, at least in my experience, is not necessarily the ability to ask someone for a referral or do something like that. It's how can I become the person that's worth referring? How can I become put together in a way that provides value at whatever level someone's there? And how can I get in front of people that I know for a fact are in my ideal client market? How do I find that high level hit list? How do I get in front of them more consistently? How do I get in front of them with providing value? Right. This is one of the reasons, I'll wrap up with this. This is one of the reasons that I can't stand networking events as a whole. It's a bunch of people, typically speaking, now not always, but typically speaking, it's a bunch of people walking around with their business cards, trying to shove a business card down your throat, tell you about how everything they're doing so you can send a friend their way or anything on those lines, right? A question, you really want to start making an impact if you show up at an event like that or you're meeting new people, get to know them a little more, go more beyond, oh, just like, cool, what do you do, right? Start asking why questions. Well, why are you, oh, that must be really awesome that you're in, I don't know, you're in technology, for some reason, right? Or for finance. It's like, that must be really cool to be able to see, like, see the patterns that are unfolding. And like, whenever you get a win or something like that, whenever you do well, that's got to be really exhilarating, right? Put yourself in their shoes. Oh, that's really interesting. Why'd you go into that field? Oh, that must be really rewarding to experience blank, 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 right? You must really love XYZ, right? Whatever that is. Build that personal connection, help them see that, which then in their turn, like, wait a minute, you're different. You're not just trying to shove something down my throat. You're not just trying to force me to do anything like that. You don't have commission breath. Like, you're actually just having a real human conversation. And then cool. Like, hey, so what do you do? Oh, I do blank, blank, blank. Right. Great. Hey, I really believe in what you're doing right now. How can I help support you? How can I help support the goals that you're moving on? Right. What's really important to you right now? And don't be, I think another issue of this, sorry, I get a little long winded at times, but to tie a bow on this one, I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to have really direct conversations. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think especially in our modern society, we can confuse being direct with being rude. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. An example of this, when if you're meeting with someone that's an executive or something like that, and they've been doing it for a while, asking like, hey, it's like, what's on the horizon for you guys? What's on the future? Oh, well, this, right? And it's like, hey, can I just be really direct with you? Can I just ask you a question? Right? Getting permission first. Don't just blast them with it. But it's like, okay, you've been doing this for what, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? You're successful. It's obvious. Money's not really an issue for you. I'm gonna say at this point anymore. Let's just call a spade a spade. Like, what's the most important thing for you now then? Like, what's next up? Now that you've got, the house, the family, the kids, all this other stuff, what's next? What's on the horizon? Right? Get to know them, get beyond just that personal persona, get to know them personally, and then they'll start to reveal more and more of themselves. You bring value to that situation by being a person that's worth referring. And then you find somebody else in your network to connect them to, or find some way to help them, right, in that capacity. So, anyway, guys, thanks so much for your time. I'm going to polish this up a little more and go a little more in depth, or probably another several hours of training on some of these individual topics, even, and helping people figure that portion out. But I wanted to get this out to you. Thanks so much for supporting me and for reaching out to begin with. And yeah, I'm really excited for it. So if this is of value to you, would love for you to go ahead and Follow me on social media. I'm gonna say Jay Schmitz Coaching on Facebook and at It's the Schmitz on Instagram as well. On my end as well too. If you know anybody that works in sales or business that's looking for looking to scale their business in any capacity. If you're knowing any salespeople that are performing at a decent level, but they're consistently burned out, frustrated, maxed out with everything going on, they're just not experiencing a lot of fulfillment in their life. I'd really love to have a conversation with them and see if they're a good fit. So if you know anybody that fits that profile, would love to have that combo. Feel free to send them my website, myleadershiplegacy.com. There's a booking link on there. Love to have a talk. And if not, in the meantime, just thanks so much for supporting me and interacting with me here on social media. Look forward to hearing back from you guys.